Oh, oh wow.
Oh, sick.
Boom. All right.
It's official now. Um, okay. How do I think that's uh
These yellow ones are the ones you guys are gonna ask first. You got the
yeah.
I'm not
highlights.
sure. Yeah, I think we just go kind of down the list here and just. Uh,
Each of us is doing a page on that. Like, for example, one person's gonna do the legal structure, the other one's gonna do the community services, resources.
so, dog,
Mm,
here's the deal.
more
Think
or less. I think it's got to be 4 to 5 pages is what the paper
Mhm.
is. I think it's 3 to 5 maybe,
I think it's
but
a limit of five.
okay,
Mm.
max to 5. Okay,
Yeah.
Max.
so maybe like half a page to a page per
Mm.
session.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Oh, what's up?
What's your
Hi.
names? Oh, we got it here.
Mm-hmm.
Farazafal?
Faraz.
Wait.
Faraz?
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. And Guyvan?
Yeah.
And Doherty?
Yeah.
Oh, oh, that's your
Owen.
last name? Owen?
Yeah.
Mine
Okay.
is mine's last name, first name, and then his is first name, last name.
Got it. Okay. And then Faraz has only one name.
Oh, it's just
Yeah.
Faraz, and then
We
Fazol
all
is my
like to be
last
a
name.
little bit different.
Got it. Okay.
Mm.
Hey, well, thanks for asking me to participate.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you for
Yeah.
joining.
for your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. We got 30 minutes. Fire away.
All right, cool.
Gavin, would you like to
Um,
start?
sure, I can start. Um, so the first one, we're kind of have like we have like 5 different sections we're gonna try and hit. It's gonna be pathways and skill set, identifying opportunities, resource and acquisition, legal structure, and then community resources. And then we're kind of gonna switch off between people asking you questions from each one. So the
We're
first
also
one
recording
was,
this session.
yeah,
Just so you
okay. First one were, what were key experiences or decisions in your journey that led you to pursue entrepreneurship, and how do those moments shape your career path?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it would be easy to say pursuit of money, but that's not it. There's definitely easier paths to make money than entrepreneurship. It's self-validation, ego, uh, drive, unrelenting drive. Um, those are just characteristics that actually, in a large sense, were developed just trying to get through school. If I fail at school, I'm a loser. I can't fail. How do you succeed at school? Work really, really, really hard. And so that mindset really set the path. So, ego is a big thing, and self-validation, self accomplishment. And the second half was how does that what?
Like, how did those moments or that like self-validation, that ego, the unrelenting drive, like how did that shape your career path to where you've gotten now today?
Well, I've never had a job, so I thought if I did get a job, it would be really, really difficult for me to work for anybody. And so once you start down this path, there's no going back. So I think well, I worked for my dad when I was a teenager, and I worked in college for about 2 months for somebody, and I realized he's an idiot. And so uh, And then I worked for the city of Oconomowoc for 2 years, but that was just a part-time job.
Gotcha. Let's see. Were there any particular challenges or knowledge gaps that you faced early on in your entrepreneurial career, and how did you kind of grow or overcome them to become successful?
Yeah, so I gotta just tell you, I'm doing an auction which ends in 1 minute 54 seconds. So I am a little distracted. That's the only item on the auction.
What's the
Uh,
auction for?
well, I've already bid on like 5 items. I've lost them all. This
Oh
one
no.
is,
No. Do
yeah,
you do like eBay auctions or like what is this?
this one is a local auction. I'm just gonna bump the bid up to $165 and be done with it.
Nice.
All right, there we go. Now I'm the high bidder. This is a picture of a woman for a Ham's beer ad. So I just bid, I think I bid, yeah, $170. See if I can get it. So if I don't, I don't. Oh, and now it's at somebody's bidding me up 150. So yeah, it just never stops. All right, so the question again.
Were there any particular challenges or knowledge gaps that you faced early on in your entrepreneurial career, and how did you overcome them to eventually gain success where you're at today?
Yeah, so I've started a number of different businesses. Every one of them I knew absolutely nothing about. I was absolutely clueless. So the knowledge gap was the size of an ocean. And I I just got outbid. I'm done. It's at 190, whatever. Um, and the way I overcame it is I just would write the business and figure it out along the way. Just there is nobody to teach you. So, for example, this is my current job is I appeal property tax assessments. So I showed up at my first hearing 17 years ago. And I get up there and I'm saying stuff. It's absolutely wrong. I'm a complete moron. And everybody knows it. And after the hearing, the guy I was opposing comes up to me and he said, "You might be an accountant, but you don't know anything about property assessment." And I was so ticked. I was so upset. And I realized he was right. And so what I did is I went and I studied, and the book is about 1,000 pages, and it's as awful as you think. And I became a certified assessor, and I realized at that point, I am by far more educated than anybody I am now going up against. And so the way you do it is when you're not educated in something, you get the business. First, get that business going, and then stumble your way through it. And there's often a fear that I'm starting a new business. What happens if somebody asks me, 1 second. What happens if somebody asks me, how long have you been doing this? And then the embarrassment and the humiliation. I've never done it before. You're the guinea pig. Okay. It's like they never ask. They just don't. They figure that you're the expert. So what happened was 2 days ago, I thought, well, I'll try selling accounting businesses. Okay. I'm a CPA, I'm a salesman. I sold one a couple of years ago, and this woman just kind of stumbled into my lap. And I thought, okay, I can sell her business for 200,000. I'll charge her 20, I'll charge her 10%. I'll make 20 grand. And I said, listen, I've only sold one other business before. I'm not going to BS you. And I think I can do this. And, if you want to, you can hire me. And if you don't, I just don't give a shit. Because if I succeed, that's great. And if I don't, I've learned something from that person anyway. So she comes back and she says, well, I'll give you everything you earn over 200,000. And I'm a licensed real estate broker. And that's called a net listing, which is illegal in the state of Wisconsin. You can't take whatever you write the deal for as your payment. It has to be a percentage of the transaction. So I wrote her back. I said, I can't do that. My price is 10%. if you don't want to hire me, we're good. And I was very nice to her. I'm very professional, very polite, but it's just one of those, I just don't give a shit attitudes that they want to hear. Because if you come back begging, then you're the wrong guy to be selling that business. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So kind of taking charge and figuring it out along the way.
Absolutely. And it's okay if you've never done it before, because everybody has to start at ground zero at some point. The mistake that people make is they have a business and they think, okay, I'm going to sell my business, or it failed, or I'm very familiar with this particular profession. I'm going to do that again and try it again. Don't do it. Try something different. Do something you've never done before, because it makes it a lot more exciting.
All right, so Gary, I'm interested in, how did you first identify the business opportunity for your leasing company?
So that was truly my first business. So what happened was my dad knew somebody that I thought mistakenly was in the business, but he wasn't. What he did is he was an administrator for an association of leasing companies. Okay. So when you own a leasing company, you join the association. And he had two associations. He had the Equipment Association and the Automobile Leasing Association. So my dad said, go over there, see if you can work with him, and maybe we'll buy the business. At the time, he had 4 leases. That's nothing, okay? But it was 4 more than I had. So he showed me, how it works, because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I started going out and writing business, lots of business. So I was introduced to it by my father, but we really hooked up with somebody that didn't know what the hell they were doing. They knew the basics of finance, and that was it. Anyway, once I got the ball rolling, business exploded. And the way that I did it is I was not running around trying to lease people cars, selling finance, selling money. What I did is I went to copy machine places, and they would sell copy machines for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And what I said to them was, I'll give you the money. I'll pay for the copy machine. Hook me up with your customer. So I made one sale to the copy machine guy, and he would sell 20 copy machines a week. All of a sudden, I'm doing a buttload of business. And then I was hooking up with car dealers and other equipment guys. And so you make one good sale and they do all the heavy lifting, because when you're giving away money, it's not that hard to sell something. You're just selling money. But the start was because my dad introduced me.
So you're an entrepreneur with experience in multiple industries. How did you go about identifying new opportunities to venture into?
So I partnered with my friend Kevin. So my friend Kevin buys liquidation inventory, and he sells it on eBay. And I was quite fascinated by it. And so what happened with that was I said, hey, I'd like to do this with you. And he's like, okay. And I said, show me an example of what you do. And he had this, it's called a defroster tray. And if you can imagine a piece of metal where somebody takes, call it a knife, and they scratch some lines on the piece of metal, paint it black. That's it, okay? And then what you do is you take a piece of frozen meat and you put it on it, and it will defrost that meat in 1/3 the time as laying it on a plate. It makes no sense. Science can't figure this stuff out. There's no batteries, no electricity, no flame. You just throw a piece of meat on a piece of black metal with some lines on it, and it defrosts it. So I said, oh, that's cool. How does that work? He said, well, I buy it for $2. I sell it for $12, and Amazon gets a third. Okay. So, yeah, I think that was it. That was 15 years ago. So he was buying it for $2. We sell it for 12. A third of 12 is $4. So that leaves $8. We bought it for $2. We make $6 on every $2 tray. Are you with me?
Yeah.
$6 profit. So I said, I want to do this. He says, well, I went to all the local hardware stores that sell this. It's a chain of stores called Menards. I don't think you have it out there. And he said, they're all sold out. I'm like, okay. So the deal that we struck 15 years ago was I buy, you sell. It's like, okay. So at the time I had an assistant and I said, I'm going to go to Menards and I'm going to get their list of every one of their stores' fax numbers. So I got their calendar, which lists their name, address, fax number, and I had my assistant put every fax number into the fax machine. Then what I did is I wrote a one-page letter. Hi, my name is Gary. This is my American Express card number. This is my UPS number. This is my sales tax exempt number. I want every tray you've got. And we were making $6 a tray. I mean, profit, $6 a tray, right? We sold 10,000 trays in like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so how did the opportunity arise? I just asked my friend, what do you do? How much money is in this thing? Where did you buy this thing? And so really it comes down to communication. You know, just you got to listen really close to the other guy. So another one, this isn't quite a new business, but I appeal property assessments, and I'm appealing a baseball stadium. So it's a small one. It's 9 million. And what happened was, believe me, that's a small baseball stadium. You know, it's a decent sized property, but it's a small stadium. So what happened was the local Milwaukee Brewers were going to leave Wisconsin. So the governor wrote a provision in the state statutes that said they don't have to pay property tax on the stadium. So this is like $1 billion stadium. Okay, so it was a big deal. And it applies, you can't just say it's for the Milwaukee Brewers. It's got to be for any professional baseball team in the state. Well, there's like 3. So I stumble across one of them. I'm appealing the assessment, and then this statute falls in my lap. It's tax exempt. It's like, holy crap. This is great. So I go to appeal it. And we got a little bit clipped off. I got 400 grand clipped off, but that wasn't enough. I wanted 5 million clipped off so that we would be down to like 4 million. And they wouldn't allow it. So I'm like, that's fine. I'm going to sue you. So we started the lawsuit. And then I find out that they're tax exempt. So they paid $100,000 in taxes last year. Their new tax bill will be 0. Right? And so I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I get a percentage of that, okay? And then I thought, well, there's like 3 baseball stadiums in the state. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reach out to the other 2 guys and clip their tax bill down to 0 and make a pile of dough. So it's not just, oh, I found this opportunity. It's what do you do with the next deal? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. You really you jump on these opportunities, which is impressive.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I fail a lot. I fail at a lot of things.
What do you think your biggest fail was?
Well, by far, it was the leasing company. So it was was a terrible failure, but it was a really good life lesson. So what happened was, back in the day, there were these, I don't think I ever told you about this, Ian. Back in the day, there were these new machines. They're called MRIs and ultrasounds, and they were ungodly expensive, really expensive. And clinics couldn't afford them. So there was this guy who had this idea that he would put these portable ultrasound machines in vans and drive to the clinic with a technician. So when you need an ultrasound, they do it right there in the clinic, and this machine is wheeled into the clinic. So the patient thinks that the tech and the machine is owned by the doctor. It's not. It's just a gig, right? So the doctor wants to scale this. So he comes to an attorney to find money. So what happens is, me and like 3 other guys, it was millions. And the other guys put up most of the money, but I ran the leasing company and put up millions, and the guy was a crook. And he would have made a shit ton of money if he just would have run the business. But instead, he just was a crook and screwed me and my partners, and it was a shitload of money. And I was about 25 and I didn't have much. And the lesson I learned was the reason I did the deal is because the lawyer intimidated me, and he said, if this is too big for you or too much for you to handle, let me know, I'll go someplace else. It was very interesting because he intimidated me, and I wasn't going to be intimidated, and I made a terrible decision. And it was that lesson that really shaped how I do business going forward, which is I will never let somebody intimidate me. Ever. Really, really important lesson. And, you know, if I didn't lose at that deal, I never would have learned that lesson. You know, some people would just walk away and say, well, that was expensive. I'm not going to be in business anymore. But no. Okay, next.
I can ask you a question. So I'm a bit interested in your business regarding the community resources. One thing I'd like to ask you is, did you ever use any local business programs like small business centers or Chamber of Commerce to help you start or grow your business?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you my most recent experience with that. So I'm developing a piece of real estate in downtown Milwaukee, and I had a couple of different ideas on what to do with the property. And it's a big piece of property. It's a valuable piece of property, but I wanted to get community involvement so that I could suck money out of the system to feed the real estate. So, you know, if you want something, the best thing to do is to give the other guy what they want, and then they'll shower you. So if you want money, you give the other guy what they want. So I'm out there talking to these community experts, and it was a complete waste of time. It was complete. These are people that are supposed to be advising me, and you know, they're either retired bankers or seasoned professionals. And I got to tell you, it was really a bad experience. They wouldn't call back. They had no good suggestions. When I'm looking for money, they didn't really have anything to contribute. So that was one of the very few times that I went to the community, the business community, that kind of thing to really try to find support. So on this same piece of real estate, the city of Milwaukee, they created a BID. Do you know what a BID is? Business Improvement District?
No. Can you go a bit into that?
Sure. So what happens is the city dreams up a new way to tax you, and then they dress it up with a stupid name. So
Mm.
it's called Business Improvement District. And what they do is they say, we're going to charge people this tax that will go toward developing new business in this neighborhood. And look at all the great things that these other bids have done in other areas. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, what a bunch of bullshit. It's the government telling me how they're going to help me. It's like, forget it. So what happened was everything is based on the assessed value of the property. And a client of mine asked me to reduce his assessment. I did it. I reduced it by a couple of million. And then I went back to the bid and I said, hey, we want our money back because we paid into the bid based on this higher value. And as you can see, we got it lowered. And the bid said, we're not giving you any money back. So it was at that point I realized that they're just a bunch of crooks. So they come along and they say, hey, we're going to have this new district and we want you to be a part of it. And I said, let me just give this some thought. So I do the research. What they do is they raise $150,000, $200,000. And I said, okay, open records request. I want to see where all the money's going. You know where the money goes? To pay for the guy that's running around trying to put together the bid. That's his salary. It's like the guy doesn't do anything except collect money to make a salary. So I said, you know, this is a bunch of BS. I don't want any part of it, but I'm not done. What I want to do is I want to destroy your bid. So what they had done is they had started the bid and then they wanted to expand it. And I can kill the bid expansion if I can get 50% of the market value of the property that's going into the bid to say we don't want to be in the bid. So then what I did is I got public records of everybody that was being added to the bid, called them up and said, these crooks want to take your money, call it a bid. It's really a tax. Let's all join together and kill it. And every one of them was terrified of retaliation from the city. So I was the only one that was very vocal. And when they drew the map for the bid, they drew the map excluding my two properties. And then I wasn't done because I wanted to tell the council what a bunch of crooks they were. And I said, I want a copy of the agenda. So they gave me the agenda and they didn't realize it, but it had notes on it from the executive director that said, we're drawing this guy out of the bid because he's such a pain in the ass. He's going to try and kill it. So, you know, I don't just stop when I get what I want. It's one of those things where when you know something is really wrong, you got to just keep fighting to the bitter end. So, you know, that goes back to the idea of drive. It's just the difference between right and wrong. I know a very long answer to community support for a project. I wouldn't rely on it. And the other part is it comes with a lot of hair and a lot of strings, and it isn't worth it. Find the money someplace else. Is it primarily to raise the money?
Yes. So besides that part where you mentioned government resources, did you ever work with any angel investors or venture capitalists for your project to fund your sources?
So I had reached out, but my project wasn't good enough to attract money. I did. And that would be a great source. That's excellent.
Ian, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So pertaining to legal structure, and business entities, what business entities have you chosen for your business? What were the key factors that influenced you to decide on the entity that you chose?
So the leasing company started out as a subchapter S, which is a code section from the Internal Revenue Code. And what it does is it basically gives you the protection of a corporation and certain tax advantages, certain pass-through. You don't have to pay tax on dividends because you take it all as income, and you avoid double taxation by running it through a sub-S. Since then, they came out with this new thing 30 years ago called a limited liability corporation. And that is really an ideal corporate structure. Now, as you and I had talked, you can stuff it through Nevada. You can stuff it through Wyoming. I mean, there are different areas that you can go to avoid certain administrative taxes, but for the most part, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans, especially in a small business. And the reason that I did it was in conversation with my CPA and my attorney, they had recommended it. And that's really two really important parts of any business is to have a good CPA and a good attorney. Really good.
So going into that, you are a licensed CPA. Why do you go to a third party CPA if you have all the credentials that they do?
Okay, so I'm definitely a CPA, and what happens is the majority of CPAs work on income tax, federal income tax, state income tax, and I was never into it. I just didn't like it. I liked certain parts of the tax code, but it is really, really involved, and it's essentially you either do that and nothing else, or you do something else and not that. And I chose to not do that. And it's a good thing because there's not just CPAs out there that do it. There's enrolled agents, there's registered agents, and there's Bob who does taxes. Everybody does taxes. There's so much competition, and it has become a whore's market where you crank out a tax return for $100 or $120. You work your tail off, you make no money. It just isn't worth it. I'd rather go into a business where I'm very, very knowledgeable, specialized, and people pay through the nose. People aren't going to pay through the nose to file a tax return. People will pay through the nose for a code provision that you know about that nobody else knows about. And I was talking to you about this the other day. It's called the Rockefeller Trust. And essentially what happens is it's a way to fund generational wealth through an insurance policy and a trust. So, for example, when a child is born, as a gift, you give the child a whole life policy. And each time as a child is born, they get this policy. So they would get, let's say, over a lifetime, $1 million of cash in an account that they can draw from. And when they croak, they get $1 million when they croak. And so they can borrow against this policy. And when they croak, it funds the trust. The more people in the trust, the more money there is. And so after one generation, let's say you got 5 kids, 10 kids and grandchildren and all that, you got maybe 10 or 15 or 20 million in the trust. Now take it out to the second generation. All of a sudden, it's times 5. You got 75 or $100 million, and you have generated generational wealth forever. And so how much would somebody pay for that versus what would they pay for a really good tax return? 5 grand, 10 grand. If I set up a trust and I truly understand the dynamics of this law and I coordinate with their CPA, their insurance agent, their attorney, and I piece this whole thing together and I run out and I buy a $20,000 trust document or $30,000 trust document, I can resell that thing 100 times. If their attorney does it, they're going to charge them 20 or 30,000 plus they got to understand what the document and how to incorporate that document. They're going to be 50 grand deep and they're only going to sell it once. I can be 30 grand deep or 40 grand deep and sell it a dozen, 20 times, whatever, you know? So the reason I don't do my own income tax is because it's a bunch of minutia. It's a bunch of stuff that I just have no interest in it. I'd rather focus on a really specialized area that brings great value. And it means working with rich people, you know? They'll pay. Don't work with broke people. There's no money there.
Got it.
Our meeting's about to end. Do you mind if we create a new one and then re-invite you back?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna restart it and then share the link to our group chat, and then Ian, can you just share it with him?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop